Welcome to the Advance Your Art podcast, where we talk about the journey from artist to entrepreneur and everything in between. You've worked hard to hone your craft. Now take it to the next level with tips, techniques, strategies, and routines used by successful artists to grow their businesses and careers. Now, let's get started and have some fun with your host, Yuri Cataldo.
Good morning, JaNae. Welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Good. How's it going, Yuri?
Not bad. I'm enjoying the warm-up that we have in Boston. How are things in Chicago?
Same thing. We're looking at a high of 77 today on this day at the end of the month, March, 77 degrees. Love it.
That's great. I wish it were going to get that warm here. I think we're going to hit in the 40s, and I'm happy for the 40s right now.
Yeah, that'll be nice too.
Oh, yeah. So I'd like to start today by asking how you describe yourself and what it is that you do.
So I would describe myself as someone who does many things. Primarily, I am an art practitioner. I'm an artist. I like to make things. I like to learn about things and use visuals, use the tools that I have to create cultural critique, to think about ideas that I encounter in my life or that I've sort of noticed in the things that I'm interested in the world. I'm also an educator. I teach at DePaul University in Chicago, as well as the Illinois Institute of Art in Schaumburg, right outside of Chicago area, in their photography, film, and video production departments as a part-time person. And in addition to that, my partner and I run a studio under the name Concrete Imaging, where we produce photographic work and videography for clients and collaborators. A couple of other extensions of my practice include working on a couple of long-format documentaries, as well as a music project. So there's a lot going on.
Wow, definitely. Your plate sounds very full.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't really think of it as a plate as much as just those things that keep me going. You know, you got to have that juice that wakes you up in the morning and you're like, oh yeah, like I'm ready to get down to the studio and get some work done.
Yeah.
So.
I'm curious, with all the things that you're doing right now, how do you schedule your day? Like, is there a specific set of, rituals or routines that you do to make all of this happen? Or how does that work?
So as someone who teaches part-time, not knowing exactly how my schedule is going to be quarter to quarter, and also as someone who takes on freelance work that has a number of different deadlines, or, since we do a lot of architectural photography, you never know when you're going to have that 5 a.m. day going out and photographing a building, right, when the sky is that magic navy blue color. Those things have to get scheduled in. I would say, as far as a routine or ritual, coffee is key. Any kind of caffeine, tea. I'm a big fan of rooibos tea. And the other thing that's sort of me specific is I like to make sure my hair is done, like in a way that I can go out into the world and feel good about everything. And that might sound a little bit superficial, but I think that there's something deeply psychological about having, your head together, and whatever that looks like, even if it's, kind of a messy day or, a rolling out of bed day, still being able to, throw in a little bit of hairspray, put it up into a bun and get going. I feel like there's something that makes me feel ready, to sort of take on whatever tasks I have laid out for myself on a given day.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I read an article recently about Baz Luhrmann and his morning rituals and routines, and he has this thing where unless his hairbrush is set out for him in the morning, his entire day is like crap. And it's a similar thing, and if you look at it from one way, you're like, oh, what a diva. But if you look at it from another way, which I think is how he approaches it, it's he makes so many decisions throughout the day that this is like the one thing where he doesn't want to have to make a decision. Where it's like his hairbrush is there, that's part of his routine. It allows him just get past that and then get on with his day. And it sounds like you have a couple of things that are very much like that.
Yeah, it's a nice sense of control and an order in a way, or a metaphor for that.
Exactly. So growing up, do you think there was one important thing that you were taught by a parent or teacher or a mentor that impacted what you're doing now?
Absolutely. A lot of my work, both commercial work that deals with architectural photography, interiors and spaces, but as well as my artistic practice deals with the built environment and reading the built environment, decoding what different buildings mean, or, sort of having a hold on that history, because otherwise driving around can be really overwhelming if you find yourself to be deeply curious about the histories or the functions of various architectural forms. I remember specifically going to this is going to sound silly, but take your daughter to work day with my dad.
Oh, uh-huh.
My dad's a landscape architect, so you walk into the office, and at the time, this is, mid 90s, we're walking around and there's all of these large drafting desks and with plans laid out, these drawings where you can sort of look down at the drawings and you see, hey, like a circle with a dot in it is this symbol for tree. And there's a big square, which is sort of the placeholder for that building. And there's something about the architect or the landscape architect, like my dad is, where you can kind of orchestrate reality. And I found that, didn't really understand that as a small, second grader or third grader at Take Your Daughter to Work Day. But I just remember feeling really inspired or I felt the sense of just total awe and wonder at those drawings and how they could map out space. Mm-hmm. And I feel that a lot of that comes out in the work that I make today, which is great. And I just remember a lot of conversations between my parents. Like, my mom is an interior designer. My dad is a landscape architect. So there were always a lot of home interior projects going on at our house. And, they built a pond in the backyard. They built a pond in the front yard, redid, they redid the basement, all of these projects. And I remember specifically when our neighbors and the folks in the backyard started putting up fences, my parents sort of totally lost their shit. They're like, oh man, like our yard is getting, it's not this big expanse of land, and this is in suburban Kansas City. It's not this big expanse of land anymore out in the suburb. Like, we're sort of slowly getting boxed in by these fences going up. And I remember that being a pretty significant memory. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. So you grew up in the Midwest, like I did. Were there? Yeah. How do you think growing up in the Midwest has either shaped or planted a seed into your career now?
The Midwest, as you're aware, is it's a really interesting place. It doesn't really have the same geographic or cultural identity as what you find out at the coast, where you have the water that you can travel to. In Kansas City, I think there's sort of fetish towards the West. Like, everyone in Kansas City is constantly talking about their trip to Colorado or packing up to go hiking or to get away. Like, I swear I don't have the statistics on this, but there's got to be the most like outdoor stores, like per capita of any Midwestern city. In Kansas City, you got your Scheels, your REI, your Dick's Sporting Goods. Like, people just want. Serious. Like, people just want to get out, and they want that sort of sense of adventure. And the Midwest mindset is, or at least the Kansas City mindset, is sort of Western looking, but still sort of that, oh yeah, you can come into my home, or oh yeah, of course we have friends in our church groups and our neighborhoods that we have access to. But I do feel like there's a total like fetish for the West. for the West Coast and for Colorado.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's interesting but that makes sense though, especially since you guys are so close to Colorado in that way. I'm from Indiana, so it's more of the East Coast in Indiana, and yeah, but the same
awesome.
Same kind of thing. Could you walk me through your journey then from undergrad until your first few jobs coming out of school?
Yeah. So in undergrad, my primary major was actually in political science. And then I additionally majored in studio art because I loved my faculty, my mentors in that program, and I liked making work. So I majored in political science and studio art and Spanish as well. I have a family history of German immigrants to Ecuador, so I spent some time living in Ecuador when I was 15 and learning sort of the grammatical and literary aspects of the Spanish language was really, really interesting cultural perspective to me. But what I found interesting going into my junior and senior year in college was that in my art practice, I was integrating a lot of concepts that I was learning from policy making and analysis classes in my political science degree-based classes, as well as bringing the art side of things, thinking about objectivity and subjectivity, bringing those concepts in art over to a class about political philosophy. So I was constantly in my senior year trying to work on my undergraduate theses, trying to bridge that gap or find that connection. And I never really wanted to make art just to make nice things, but art that was sort of motivated by a curiosity that I have about the world around us or urban realities. So coming out of that, I was like, oh crap. So I have this like awesome liberal arts degree with 3 majors, and oh shit, I have to quell my sense of like extreme entitlement because I just had this huge accomplishment, but I'm 22 and trying to think of what that next step is going to be. I had the opportunity to interview for and get a job as an intern at the University of Texas at Austin's brand new Visual Arts Center, which is a great institution in collaboration with artists that come in from across the country for various lectures and demos, as well as working in collaboration with the MFA program and the undergraduate students. And my role as an intern was sort of, a little bit of busy work, but also it was in a conversational position, right? So it's in events and public programming. We did a lot of hosting of the artists that were coming through, and I was really able to ask them a lot of questions about where they were coming from and what they were working on, what they were making, and sort of put myself in a position to help them and talk to them. Of course, as you're probably aware, many arts internships, don't pay very much, if anything.
Right.
So I coupled that with teaching preschool art and drama classes for the Doherty Art School, which is awesome. It's like if you can imagine like the hipsters of the city of Austin having kids and bringing their kids to a preschool. These were the best dressed kids you've ever seen. And it was fun. It's like you tell them that they're frogs and they literally think that they're frogs. And it's the best acting class ever. 4-year-olds, right? And then I was also starting to work at a steakhouse chain in the city. So I was hosting there and having those sort of real world, as opposed to fake world, I guess, those conversations with various patrons and people that worked there from a lot of different backgrounds, ages, and just getting to know the oral histories of the servers that worked there was a very, very interesting experience. And one of the bartenders actually at the restaurant ran a music blog that I got to collaborate with him on and go to various shows in Austin and write up little snarky pieces and, have those conversations. And that was really meaningful for someone who's like 22 and has a VIP pass to ACL. I was just beside myself, but like totally ready to work. I was also applying to graduate school, ended up getting into one of my top